The next segment that I have with me is digital disruption in business. और जी इसका जो टॉपिक है कंप्लीट वो कुछ इस तरह से है कि हाउ डिजिटल डिस्ट्रप्शन हैज़ अफेक्टेड द बिजनेस वर्ल्ड एंड व्हाट आर एक्सपेक्टेशन फ्रॉम द बिजनेस ओनर्स. ओके जी, मिस्टर मार्क पेलिस will join us from Australia live over here.
Okay, so hi everybody, and sorry for the technical issues there. Today I'm going to talk about some digital transformation topics and try and stick to the conference theme around ERP and look at how an ERP can really set up the foundation for a successful digital transformation initiative. So I'm running this meeting from Melbourne. According to Google, that's 10,620 kilometres away. So if there are some delays, then that explains why. So just before I get to the meat of the presentation, I just wanted to run a couple of quotes by you that I think will get you thinking around digital transformation. Okay, so the first one here from Charles Darwin, right? It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And I think change is one of those things that's really important when it comes to digital transformation. You've got to have the willingness to change, you've got to have that need or that desire to change, and you've got to be able to change. That's something organisations really need to consider. The second one's from George Westerman. He's out of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. When digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But when it's done wrong, all you have is a really fast caterpillar. And I think organisations, they tend to jump in technology first. They don't look at the business processes or what they're actually trying to achieve or what the business problem is that they're trying to solve. And they put in the technology and they get really fast at doing the same thing that they've already done. And then the third one, the biggest impediment to company future success is its past success. And again, talking to executives and talking to the leadership teams, understanding or getting them to understand just because it's worked in the past and just because it's working now doesn't mean it's going to work in the future, and you need to think about the future. So I'm Mark Pellas. I've been in the ERP space since 1991. I've been a developer and I've been a global program director. Now I run a small advisory practice here working with CIOs and business leadership teams on really how do they prep an organisation for digital transformation and how do they make it work. So I also lecture at Victoria University on topics around ERP and digital transformation, and I'm a member of the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council. So when we get into this, what I'd like to do is just talk about a few different topics. The first one is around digital transformation. So just looking at who's doing it, what they're doing, and really why are they taking on digital transformation now. Then we'll look at around the conference theme of ERP and just get a bit better understanding of how an ERP implementation or having that good solid software underlying all your business processes can complement a digital transformation. And then we'll look at what happened in 2018. We'll look what's going to happen or what we predict will happen in 2019. And then if we've got time, I'd like to spend a little bit of time on just 5 emerging trends that are going to go gangbusters in 2019. And we really need to jump on board with these things. So really, if we want to talk about why now and look at who's doing it, I picked up a really good survey. It was done by the predominant global research firm Gartner in 2017. And they did a survey of 3,000 CIOs across 100 countries, across multiple industries, and they accumulated all the results into a really good paper. So I thought that's a pretty good place to start. And I figured if we start with a question of why, then that's probably as good a place as any. So when these 3,000 CIOs were interviewed, they were asked why are they driving a digital transformation agenda and what are those drivers? And you can see there on the screen, over half of them is because of the customer preferences and growth. So really it's chasing customers. Customers are changing their behaviours. The online world is changing things. The digital disruption that's being caused by the Ubers and the Airbnbs and all these other startups is changing the way customers want to interact with organisations, and businesses need to change to that. Growth opportunities in new markets. So as we get better with our technology, we are able to tap into new markets. And we're getting a lot of competitive pressure too. So not only are you feeling the pressure, but your competitors are feeling the pressure. And it's kind of a race to see who can get there first, because who can transform fastest and quickest will be the winner in this game. And the last real reason to change was around regulatory compliance. And in the last couple of years, we've seen some good ones. So the General Data Protection Regulation, so GDPR, and the International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, they have come into force over the last year or two, and companies are struggling to implement those changes with an ERP that's made much easier. So that's also driving some of these changes. The CIOs that were interviewed, again, there was 3,160 here. Some of the themes that came out were that the digital transformation it's always been a CIO issue or CTO, but in the IT frame, it's a board issue now, and it's getting to the boards and the CEOs, and they're being required to make changes. And what we're seeing is most of the organizations are currently designing and delivering, right? So they're prototyping, they're trying to understand, what does digital transformation mean? How can I use all this new technology that's coming out to transform my organization? And what are my use cases? I mean, what do I want to be when I grow up now, right? Because we're reinventing ourselves. So when we do that, what do we want to become, and how do we want to interact with our customers? So it's being really driven by transportation, retail, and telecom at the moment. They are driving it the most, but the others are not far behind. And we're seeing investment in digital in the top 3 spend categories of organizations now. With banking and retail, it's their number 1 spend in 2018. So given that, we've got about 17% that are now scaling. So that means they've done their prototypes, they've realized the value of the prototype, and now they're looking at taking it broader, either to more business units, to different products, or elsewhere. But they are taking it out into the organization into a BAU shape, and they are starting to get those results. But we are still only at 3% of the group that are getting the results that they want. So who's driving it? And this is an interesting one, because the driver was always the CIOs, and I think that's been part of the problem. We've talked about digital transformation now for years, and it's only really now taking off. You know, we've got the startups, the Amazons, the Ubers, the Netflixes, places like that, but in true established organizations, it hasn't really taken off. But that's changing now. It's changing because the leadership really understands that they need to get on board with this, and they're driving it. So you can see there, 34%, the Chief Marketing Officer is driving that change. And he's driving that change because the CMO is the voice of the customer. And he needs to be able to be there to ensure that we keep our customers and the customers remain loyal to our brand. The CEO, 27%. So between them, you've got 61% of those sponsoring the digital transformation agenda. The CEO is looking at growth. So between the CMO looking at retaining and growing customers, the CEO is looking at driving growth in sales. That's what's driving digital transformation. And only 19% is now with the IT department. That's a big change from a couple of years ago. So we are seeing a big shift, and that's what's driving the change at the moment. There are a number of challenges though, and this is what I'm working with companies to overcome. There's a number of challenges all around the place, and one of the biggest ones has been digital literacy across the executive teams. So your typical board member, they're older, they're not really up to date with technology. Yes, they understand the business, they understand the industry, and they understand the customers, they understand a lot of things, but technology is changing and it's driving a lot of these changes, and getting that awareness and getting that understanding. Because to be honest, these digital transformations are not cheap. They do cost a lot of money. They cause a lot of upset in the organization. So to undertake one of these, it's a lot of work. And getting that understanding at that C level and above is difficult. Getting repeatable, efficient processes where you get quality data. So data drives just about everything when it comes to digital transformation. Being able to get quality data allows you to get good insights and good analysis on your customers, on your processes, on your equipment. Everything that you're running is out of data. So we need to do that. And then the third thing, a lot of acquisitions and divestments are causing havoc as well, where you're bringing in a new organization into your organization with different processes, different data, and doing that analysis is very complex. So what we're doing is we're looking at using things like big data and machine learning to help us overcome some of these limitations. Machine learning, we can train it up, we can give it some rules to follow, and it can work out some of the grey in all these issues and help us drive some understanding and some insight. So I think it's timely for another quote. I do like quotes. This one from John Chambers. He was the executive chairman of Cisco Systems. So at least 40% of all businesses will die in the next 10 years if they don't figure out how to change their entire company to accommodate the new technology. So that's from a chairman of a board. Yes, it's a technology company, but it's understanding that the technology is going to drive a different business model. It's going to change a different consumer model, and we need to keep up. And those that don't will die. And reducing the technical debt. So the old days of stitching all these legacy systems together with sticky tape is not going to work in this new paradigm. So if we look at where ERP fits into this whole model, and this is a diagram I took out of an SAP brochure, but I think it's very relevant to SAP, but it's also very relevant to other ERPs because it does provide a general view of how ERP fits into this whole technology platform. At the center, you've got a digital core, and that digital core really runs all those back-end processes, right? Things like finance, procurement, inventory management. Everybody pretty much does those the same, right? Worldwide, they've done the same. And yes, there's a few regulatory things and whatever, but posting a purchase order or a requisition or doing your inventory counts is pretty much done the same. So by getting an ERP, you're buying processes that are proven, that thousands of customers are using and using well. At the same time, you're buying a cloud that's in the cloud. Sorry, a solution that's in the cloud. So it's scalable, it's easy to upgrade, it's just there, right? You get your bug fixes and you get a lot of those things that you get with the cloud, which is very nice. But then besides getting this core, you get a lot of ability to extend to other technology. So once you've got your core stable, you've got your processes stable, those processes are going to form good data, right? Your data is going to be consistent, it's going to have validation. All your data that you're collecting at that point through all your transactions is going to be clean and neat, and you can run all sorts of analysis across it, which then allows you to extend out to your other systems. So things reaching out to those using quality data from quality processes within your ERP system. So it's setting up that foundation and it's making sure that all that data and your processes stays consistent and relevant. Okay, so that's first section. The next section is really looking at what we did in 2018, what we're doing in 2019 and beyond. The technology is, and this is not meant to be a technology presentation based on the ERP focus, but it does give a bit of an idea about how we are using technology and what we can do going forward to continue to use this to disrupt the marketplace. So in 2018, this again is from Gartner. So at the end of each year, Gartner put together a bit of a review of the year gone past, and then they look forward to the next year. So this is taken out of their 2018 analysis of what happened in 2018, and then they looked into 2019 as well. So in 2018, we saw a lot of a continuation from 2017, and really that comes down to that change between IT driving transformation to the C-suite driving the transformation. So it's that ownership and that board level ownership of the change being driving the changes within the company, right? And that's been the big change. It's been very much around education and getting that digital literacy right across everywhere. So companies are now prototyping and looking to scale that. In 2019, we also have a number of trends that are similar. We're going to see the CEO leading this much more, right? As they start looking for growth, they start looking at what their competitors are doing, and they're looking to really transform the business. I mean, really transform it and change it around. And the technology is now proven. People are understanding it. The prototypes that were done in 2018 are now ready to grow and be put into a more of a sustainable model within the organisation and build those out. So our CEO is now leading 41% of these things, with the CIOs just doing 16, like we mentioned before. So that's a massive change that's coming through. And getting rid of all this technical debt that we spoke about. The prototypes are proving that you just can't do that. And I've worked with a few companies recently where their back end, they've grown through acquisitions and their back end is a mess, right? It's spaghetti. And trying to put in a digital transformation on top of that, where you really don't have good quality data, you don't have standard processes, is very, very difficult. And to the point where it's a paralysis. You just can't move because the processes and the data are stopping you from moving. So there's a big emphasis on removing this technical debt, moving into an ERP, moving into something that's dynamic, something that's in the cloud that you don't need to worry about. Put it in the cloud, forget about the ERP system, and focus on the value that you can get from the new technology. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of growth in 2019. Okay, I think I'm right on time here. So we're just going to run into the next slide, which is our 5 digital trends for transformation. So artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain, digital twins, and augmented reality. They're the 5 areas I just wanted to cover on. And again, it's going to be fairly high level, but I wanted to give you a bit of a feel for how each of these will fit into an organisation, how you'll see them transacting with the ERP system, and how the whole digital landscape is going to change. Because each of these work independently, but the power is when they start to work together and they interchange together. And we'll see an example of that right at the end. So artificial intelligence, I started there because I think that has got to be the most misunderstood term of all the digital transformation technology. When you talk AI, people think of robots running around the streets shooting people, right? But it's obviously not that. AI is so many things, and we're only going to look at a couple. I think you'll find AI is going really proliferate, right? The whole delivery market using drones and using AI. But we wanted to look at 2 here today. One's natural language processing, and the other is machine learning, right? Not quite as exciting as some of the robotics, but very important nonetheless in the business sense. So natural language processing, this has been around for a while, and it's essentially taking language and it's building that bridge between people and computers. And the best example I've got there is chatbots. So chatbots up until now have been very transactional. You call into a call center, a chatbot answers, you frustratingly work your way through the myriad of menus to get to where you want to be, only to find out that you need to end up talking to somebody. It's very frustrating. With natural language processing, though, it's changing, and it's starting to monitor speech, and it's starting to understand tone, energy, the vocal strains and the tempo, right? So it's not the words, it's how the words are said that it understands. So it can understand if it's an emergency. It can understand if you're really frustrated and upset, and it can take appropriate action. It's learning empathy. It's learning not just to say, press 1, press 2, or speak this or do that. It's actually got a whole language around it of empathy that it can work with you and it can talk to you about your problem before it offers solutions. It's actually pretty amazing what it's doing. The second one's machine learning. I think machine learning is probably the biggest of all the technologies that we're talking about. It's certainly in use everywhere at the moment, and it's growing exponentially. We had big data, so we're able to capture all this data. Now we're putting machine learning on top of that, and we're making sense of all this data. And what we're seeing, a great example here, is in advertising. People are on the internet all the time. all our internet traffic is being monitored and stored, and we're running machine learning across it. We're understanding people better, and we're able to advertise them much better and put the right ad in front of them at the right time, to the point where it's actually, I think, getting annoying, but it's certainly a lot of work happening in that space, and that's where we're going to get a lot more solutions out of the box around machine learning. So again, these can tap into your ERP systems and complement your business. The second one is around the Internet of Things. So right now we've got a lot of devices that are transmitting data and getting them onto the internet. In fact, if you look at the utilities industries, things like smart meters that are putting out readings every 5 minutes. I mean, there's billions and billions of records coming out of these things, and we've got to make sense of it all, right? Everything's getting smart, particularly appliances in the home. There's a lot of shift to getting smart appliances. I mean, our TVs are now, our refrigerators, our ovens, our heating systems are all starting to get smart. And I think we're seeing a lot of development now in this intelligent home. So the example I wanted to give, again, this came out of Gartner. I thought it was a pretty good example of it. And it's basically setting up this digital ecosystem that's within your home, but it also extends out beyond your house. So in this case, it's going to extend to your car. Oh, God. And also to other organizations. Can you guys hear me? Oh, shit. If you can hear me, just one second. I just got a text message from Pakistan. Let me just check it real quick. Oh, sorry, I just wasn't sure if I dropped off or not because I just saw my phone ring. I can make it real quick. I'll just jump. Yep, okay, thank you. Sorry, guys. So look, I'll just finish this one off and then I'll just flick through the next ones, right? Only because we've started this one. But essentially, the scenario is you leave work at 6 o'clock, you jump into your car. Once you get to 5 miles from home, your car transmits to your house. It now knows where you are. It turns on the heating. It gets some food cooking. It realizes you don't have it, so it puts in an order to your favorite supermarket, and it alerts a government organization, right? At the same time, the cat comes inside. It knows which cat it is. It dispenses the food. And all these things are being done through communications, through the Internet of Things, all within your house. Take a look at the slides when you get a chance, because it's actually very phenomenal what they can do. The next one is blockchain. I won't talk too much about this, but blockchain is really going to revolutionize the supply chain. It's going to give you better traceability of products across quality, across customs, and get improved delivery. Digital twins is something that we've been around for a long time, particularly around CAD diagrams of machinery. Where this is going to get big is when you start to look at organizations and cities. And I was actually looking at a video today on LinkedIn about how they're training surgeons through digital twins. So they take a digital twin of a person, they pretend to operate on this person in a digital environment before they then go into the theatre. It's fascinating stuff. And the last one is augmented reality. Massive area now in training. A lot of training is being done through augmented reality, particularly around line workers, occupational health and safety, where it's repeatable. We can just put on a set of goggles and people can simulate processes and compliance without having to actually go out onto the floor. And the last thing is putting all this together. So you've got 5 technologies. How do you put it all together? There are ways, and people are doing it, particularly around AR, IoT, and digital twins, to understand how your organisation fits together, how it all integrates, and then outside the organisation, how you get this whole digital landscape set up with your suppliers and your customers. That's the power, and that's really where you want to get to. Underpinning all that, of course,
Hello, 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 hello.
couple of key messages here. I know we're pressed for time. I won't go through them all, but I guess the message here is the transformation revolution is happening. Get your ERP in place, get your back end set up, get that stable, get good data, work with your executives, and off you go. And good luck. How's that?